After 60, one of the worries that weighs most heavily on many of us is that memory doesn't feel as sharp as it once was. There are times when we head out to get something and then forget what we were looking for, or we're in the middle of a conversation and suddenly can't recall the name of an old friend. These little lapses may seem harmless, but they leave us anxious about the possibility of dementia or Alzheimer's in the future. What's interesting is that sometimes the solution isn't far away at all. It can actually be found in our daily snacking habits. A small, everyday food that you can find in any supermarket in the United States may serve as a quiet ally in protecting our memory. Scientists have shown that this nut is packed with valuable nutrients that can fight inflammation, protect brain cells, and even extend the lifespan of our memory. Before we dive deeper, if you find these kinds of natural and easy-to-apply health topics helpful, don't forget to hit the like button, share this video so friends your age can benefit, and subscribe to the channel so we can continue this journey together with more brain care tips. And let me ask you, in your own daily routine, what kind of snack do you usually reach for? Is it something sweet? A salty bag of chips? Or have you already made a habit of choosing nutritious nuts? After 60, one of the clearest changes many people notice doesn't happen in their muscles or their legs, but in their memory. You may walk into the living room to get something, only to forget what you were looking for. You might recognize the face of an old neighbor but struggle to recall their name. There are conversations where you know you lived through the event, yet the details slip away like a fading mist. These experiences often leave people uneasy, wondering whether they're stepping into the early stages of dementia. The truth is that the human brain works like a supercomputer, with billions of nerve cells forming a vast network. When we're young, these cells communicate quickly, sending strong, clear signals. But after 60, this system naturally ages. The number of new nerve cells being generated drops, while older cells begin to break down. The protective layer around the nerve fibers, called myelin, also wears thin. Imagine the electrical wires in a house when the insulation breaks down. The current becomes weak and unstable. Our brain faces the same challenge, leading to slower reactions, weaker memory, and reduced processing ability. On top of that, the brain depends on a steady flow of blood to deliver oxygen and nutrients. After 60, blood vessels lose elasticity, and their walls may narrow, cutting down that flow. When brain cells lack oxygen, they behave like light bulbs running on low power. They flicker and fade. That explains why many older adults often feel mentally tired, struggle to concentrate, and notice their memory slipping, especially after a day of little physical activity. Another silent factor is chronic inflammation in the body. Diets high in sugar, processed foods, and underlying conditions like diabetes or high blood pressure increase inflammation. This ongoing inflammation affects the brain, making nerve cells more vulnerable to damage and speeding up their decline. The important point to remember is that memory loss is not a one-way street. Studies have shown that a healthy lifestyle, especially the right nutrition, can make a big difference. Foods rich in antioxidants, omega-3 fatty acids, and key vitamins can protect brain cells, reduce inflammation, and support the growth of new connections in the brain. So memory decline after 60 is really the result of several factors combined: the natural aging of brain cells, reduced blood flow, and ongoing inflammation. But at the same time, this serves as a reminder that we can still push back through simple daily choices. And among those choices is a familiar snack, loaded with valuable nutrients, that can become a quiet weapon to slow brain aging. Those are the brain-boosting nuts we'll explore in the next part. Among all the familiar snacks we know, few people realize that a small handful of nuts can make a big difference for memory after 60. Walnuts, almonds, and pecans are easy to spot on supermarket shelves in the U.S., often eaten as a mid-morning bite or tossed into a salad. Yet inside those tiny kernels lies a powerful package of nutrients tailored especially for the brain. Let's start with omega-3s, often called food for the brain. These fatty acids are an essential building block of nerve cell membranes. When the body has enough omega-3, the cell walls remain flexible, allowing signals to pass quickly and accurately from one neuron to another. In other words, omega-3s keep the wiring in your brain running smoothly, supporting sharp memory and clear thinking. Without enough, the signals grow weaker and more scattered, leaving memory flickering and thought processes less agile. Beyond omega-3 nuts are also rich in vitamin E, a strong antioxidant. Over time, the brain faces constant attack from free radicals, which gradually damage nerve cells. Vitamin E acts like a shield, protecting the brain cells from this biological rust. In fact, a study published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease reported that older adults with higher vitamin E intake tended to experience a slower rate of memory decline compared with those who were deficient. When omega-3 and vitamin E work together, the effect is more than the sum of their parts. Omega-3 sharpens neural connections, while vitamin E safeguards the environment around those cells. The result is a brain that stays both resilient and sharp, year after year. Picture a familiar moment in the afternoon. Instead of reaching for cookies or a bag of chips, you grab a small handful of almonds. The natural crunch and richness not only calm your hunger, but also quietly nourish your memory, making it easier to recall tomorrow's appointment or finish that crossword puzzle you enjoy each evening. The best part is that these nuts are both accessible and versatile for daily life in America. You can keep a jar on your desk, take some along on a walk, or sprinkle them over your morning oatmeal. Every small choice becomes an investment in long-lasting memory. Now that we've seen how omega-3 and vitamin E help keep the brain sharp, it's time to take the next step exploring the anti-inflammatory and neuroprotective compounds in nuts. This is the key to ensuring the brain stays not only alert in the present, but also strong and healthy for the long run. One of the most dangerous yet silent processes that takes place in the brain as we grow older is chronic inflammation. This isn't the kind of acute inflammation you can easily notice, like swollen joints or sharp pain, but a quiet, persistent type that creeps through tiny blood vessels and deep folds of the brain. Scientists even have a name for it, inflammaging the gradual link between aging and inflammation. It doesn't come with obvious symptoms, but it acts like a steady drizzle of acid rain, slowly wearing down the brain's delicate structures. When inflammation lingers, nerve cells become more vulnerable, and the ability to send signals across different parts of the brain weakens. That's why short-term memory, like recalling a phone number you just read, starts to slip, and concentration becomes harder to maintain. Even worse, inflammation is tied to the buildup of amyloid plaques and tau tangles, both strongly associated with Alzheimer's disease. This is where nuts step in with a unique role. Beyond omega-3s and vitamin E, nuts are loaded with a wide variety of plant compounds known as polyphenols. Think of polyphenols as antioxidant fighters roaming through the body, neutralizing free radicals before they cause damage. Free radicals are unstable molecules that steal electrons from healthy cells, setting off a chain reaction of harm. As they accumulate, they trigger more inflammation. Polyphenols break this cycle by stabilizing free radicals, lowering inflammation, and shielding nerve cells from constant erosion. Imagine the brain as a complex circuit board. Inflammation and free radicals act like rust building up on the wiring, making signals falter. Polyphenols are the protective oil, polishing those circuits so signals flow smoothly and preventing further corrosion. Thanks to this mechanism, the brain keeps its fluidity in processing information, and memory doesn't fade as quickly. And this effect isn't just theory. A 2020 study published in Nutrients followed thousands of older adults who regularly ate nuts over many years. Results showed that they had lower overall inflammation markers and scored higher on cognitive tests compared with those who ate fewer nuts. In other words, the microscopic changes inside the brain translated into real-life benefits: better recall, sharper focus, and faster thinking. In everyday life, Many older adults in the US are already making this shift. Instead of grabbing a salty snack or a sugary bar, they're choosing a handful of walnuts or almonds. This small swap not only leaves the body feeling lighter, but also brings a sense of mental clarity, less fatigue, while doing housework or reading a book. Thanks to their anti-inflammatory and antioxidant power, nuts quietly serve as guardians protecting the brain from decline. Even more, reducing inflammation benefits mood as well as memory. With calmer inflammation, the brain produces neurotransmitters in a more balanced way, helping us stay optimistic and less prone to sadness or anxiety. This explains why many studies link frequent nut consumption not only to sharper memory, but also to better mental well-being. So the value of nuts goes far beyond basic nutrition. They actively help extinguish the hidden fires that quietly chip away at memory. That's why making nuts part of a daily habit can serve as a long-term strategy to keep the mind clear. In the next section, we'll widen the lens even further beyond the brain. Nuts also have powerful effects on the heart, blood vessels, and bones, and when these systems stay strong, the brain gets full body support to preserve lasting memory. When people think about eating nuts, the first benefit that often comes to mind is sharper memory. But the truth is, their impact stretches far beyond the brain. And it's this wider effect, touching many different systems in the body, that creates the strong foundation the brain needs to stay clear and alert. Let's start with the heart. Nuts are rich in unsaturated fatty acids and phytosterols, natural compounds that help lower bad LDL cholesterol. With LDL under control, arteries are less likely to clog, and blood flows more smoothly to the brain. You can picture the brain as a busy city, and blood as the steady stream of trucks carrying oxygen and nutrients. If the roads are clear, the city runs smoothly. But if traffic is blocked, everything slows down. Eating nuts regularly is like investing in clean highways that keep oxygen and nutrients reaching the brain without interruption. Bones and joints also benefit from nuts. Almonds and pistachios, for instance, are good sources of magnesium and phosphorus, minerals vital for strong bones. As we get older, osteoporosis becomes more common, reducing mobility and indirectly affecting the brain because people become less active. When bones stay strong, we can keep walking, practicing Tai Chi, or gardening, and all of these activities are proven to support memory and brain flexibility. Another key benefit is weight control. Many assume nuts are fattening because they're calorie-dense, but the opposite is often true. The healthy fats, fiber, and protein in nuts help you feel full longer, cutting back on sugary snacks or salty chips. And when weight is managed well, the risk of type 2 diabetes drops. Since diabetes is one of the biggest risk factors for dementia, keeping it in check through small daily habits like eating nuts becomes an indirect yet powerful way to protect memory. There's also the gut connection. Nuts are full of soluble fiber and prebiotic compounds that nourish good gut bacteria, and the gut is closely linked to the brain through the gut-brain axis. When beneficial bacteria thrive, they release compounds that support nerve health, boost mood, and sharpen cognitive function. That's why people who eat nuts regularly often report not only better memory, but also less anxiety and a steadier emotional state. So the benefits of nuts go far beyond memory alone. They create a positive chain reaction, a healthier heart, stronger bones, steady weight, and a balanced gut. Together, these factors form the ideal environment for the brain to thrive and preserve clarity over the long run. But for these benefits to truly take hold, we also need to know how to use nuts wisely and safely. How much should we eat? Which types should we choose? And how can we avoid potential downsides? That's what we'll look at next. Knowing that nuts are good for the brain and the body is one thing, but turning that knowledge into a sustainable daily habit is another. After 60, our bodies aren't as resilient as they once were, and digestion can be more sensitive. That means moderation and smart choices are key. First, let's talk about the right amount. Nutrition experts often recommend about a small handful per day, around 1 ounce or 30 grams. That's enough to provide omega-3s, vitamin E, and polyphenols without loading on too many calories? Eating much more, especially salted or sugar-coated nuts, can mean excess calories or sodium, which isn't good for the heart. The safest bet is to choose plain, unsalted nuts. If you enjoy roasting them, do it lightly at home to preserve nutrients. Timing also matters. For older adults who start the morning with coffee, pairing it with a few almonds or walnuts is a smart move. It eases mid-morning hunger, balances energy, and helps you avoid reaching for pastries loaded with sugar. In the afternoon, when fatigue often sets in, a handful of pistachios or pecans can keep you alert until dinner without spiking blood sugar. Of course, not everyone can eat nuts freely. Those with digestive conditions such as irritable bowel syndrome may find too many nuts cause bloating. People with diabetes need to be careful with sweetened or dried fruit-mixed nut blends that can raise blood sugar. And anyone with a history of nut allergies should always check with their doctor before adding them to a daily routine. Flexibility is also part of success. Eating nuts doesn't have to follow one strict rule. Sprinkle chopped walnuts on morning oatmeal. Pack a small container of almonds in your lunch bag, or simply keep a jar in the kitchen to nibble on when needed. Some people even grind nuts into a fine powder to mix into smoothies or yogurt, making them easier to digest while adding a new flavor. These small, creative touches make the habit more enjoyable and easier to maintain long-term. It's worth remembering that the benefits of nuts don't come from eating a lot in one sitting. They come from consistency over months and years. A single handful each day may feel small, but done steadily, it becomes a long-term investment in memory and overall health. And nuts are only one piece of the bigger puzzle. Combined with leafy greens, gentle exercise like walking or yoga, and quality sleep, they give the brain the strong foundation it needs to stay sharp. Today, we've walked through why memory tends to decline after 60, and how a simple snack food can make a real difference in slowing that process down. We've seen that memory loss doesn't come from just one cause, but from a mix of natural nerve cell aging, reduced blood flow, and silent inflammation in the body. We've also discovered that nuts stand out thanks to their rich supply of omega-3s and vitamin E nutrients that keep nerve cells flexible and resilient. On top of that, the polyphenols in nuts fight inflammation, extinguishing the hidden fires that quietly speed up brain decline. Together, these effects protect memory, sharpen focus, and help older adults process information more smoothly. But the story doesn't stop at the brain. Nuts also strengthen the heart and blood vessels, stabilize bones and joints, help keep weight under control, and balance gut health. All of these improvements create the right environment for the brain to stay healthy well into later years. We've also covered how to use nuts wisely, keep it to a small handful daily, stick with unsalted varieties, and weave them into your meals in creative, flexible ways. What matters most is consistency. Eating nuts steadily over time builds lasting protection for both memory and overall vitality. The key takeaway here is if memory after 60 doesn't have to decline as fast as many fear. With small, smart choices like swapping a cookie for a handful of walnuts, we can keep our mind sharp, our mood steady, and our joy of living stronger. If you found today's content helpful, give the video a like, share it with friends your age, and subscribe so we can continue exploring natural, practical ways to care for brain health together. And before we wrap up, I'd love to ask, when it comes to your own daily routine, which nut do you enjoy most, walnuts, almonds, or pecans? Share your answer in the comments, because your story might inspire someone else to start this simple but powerful habit.